Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the third debate of the Warsaw Institute's Korea Monitor Program, entitled The Impact of Korean Unification Efforts on Women, Healing, Empowerment, and New Horizons, proudly funded by the UniKorea Foundation. Today, we explore the key role of women in Korean unification, especially in building cooperation between South Korea, Europe, and the United States. I am honored to introduce our distinguished guest, Ms. Sehyun Lee, a North Korean defector and human rights advocate based in the United States. Ms. Lee is known for her powerful storytelling on platforms such as TEDx and is a leading candidate for South Korea's ambassador for international cooperation on North Korean human rights. Good morning, Ms. Lee. Thank you so much for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me, and thank you for your kind introduction. It is my great honor to join today's discussion and someone who grew up inside North Korea system but choose to step into the unknown for the sake of freedom. It is my hope that I can offer not just the analysis but also lived experiences throughout today's discussion.
We're looking forward. Thank you, Ms. Lee, and welcome again. Unfortunately, Dr. Joanna Guzik is unable to join us due to unforeseen circumstances. We wish her well and look forward to her future engagement. With that, let's turn to our first discussion, exploring the historical context of Korea's division and its impact on women. To understand the future of unification, we must first reflect on the past. To envision the future of unification, we must first reflect on the past. Ms. Lee, could you outline the key events leading to Korea's division, including the establishment of North and South Korea, the Korean War's impact, and the ongoing tensions between North Korea's totalitarian regime and South Korea's democracy?
Sure, absolutely. So to understand the current challenges of unification, you're absolutely right. We have to go back to 1945 when World War II ended. Korea was liberated from 36 years of Japanese colonial rule. But the liberation didn't lead to independence of Korea. Instead, the Korean peninsula was divided at the 38th parallel, an arbitrary line drawn not by Koreans, but by the United States and the Soviet Union. So it was meant to be temporary, but the Cold War quickly turned into division, and it became the permanent division. But in 1948, two governments were established, the Republic of Korea in the South and the Democratic People's Republic of Korea in the North. It seems like different political entities, but actually they are backed by the rival superpowers, each seeking influence in the region. So that leads to the Korean War in 1950 when North Korea invaded the South. It was brutal, as all of us know that millions of lives lost, cities destroyed, and families separated. So while an armistice was signed in 1953, a peace treaty never was. So many people forgot, but technically the Korean Peninsula is still at war. And now today, the North Korea has become a dynastic totalitarian state built on a culture of surveillance, fear, and isolation. South Korea, in contrast, is a thriving democracy and global economic power today. And these aren't just different political systems, as I said, they are a different world. One silences people and the other encourages expression, sometimes way too much, I would say. But I love those dynamics that South Korea has, all different, encouraging different expressions that actually what makes South Korea thrive. So that's where we are now, and this makes unification incredibly complex because it is not just about merging infrastructures or rewriting laws. I personally believe that it is about healing a national trauma and managing a delicate process of realignment, bringing together two populations who, for over 70 years, have lived entirely different lives in terms of daily habits, education, worldview, communication, and even social norms. So, helping 25 million North Koreans, many of whom have never known individual freedom and exercising their human rights, a just a society built on choice, responsibility, and self expression, it's going to require far more than policy.
Thank you for that overview. Building on this historical context, how have these tensions shaped women's societal roles, particularly in North Korea's tightly controlled environment?
Mhm. So, I would say in South Korea, women's role evolved gradually over decades from the post-war rebuilding period through democratization and into one of the most competitive modern economic in the world. Um, that evolution, of course, wasn't perfect, but it was dynamic. And when I first um, I arrived here, one of the things that I noticed was how much South Korean society had shifted from traditional ideas. There was a time that, uh, those like proverbs like if the hen crows, the household chores were taken seriously. Um, I believe in both in North Korea and South Korea. While that proverbs continues in North Korea, in South Korea, um, that now that phrase feels taboo. It's something no one would dare to say out loud in public anymore. So I believe that shift alone speaks volumes. In North Korea, the trajectory was different from the start, I would say. The regime promoted gender equality from the beginning, its early propaganda, declaring that women were liberated from feudalism. But in practice, what developed was state-controlled version of equality, where women were expected to serve the system, not themselves. So their role were defined by ideological usefulness, I would say. Being a good worker, loyal wives, devoted mother of the revolution. So they were not encouraged to be thinkers or leaders, but just reliable functionaries. Then, when the economy collapsed in the 1990s after the fall of the Soviet Union, something unexpected happened. The state could no longer feed its people or maintain its grip on everyday life. So, women stepped in. Um, they ran black markets, smuggled goods, and often became the sole providers for their families. But this survival role came at a cost, I'll say, because these market activities were technically illegal, especially when they run the businesses out of the designated like area period of times. And if you got caught, some of the items banned by the government that you like doing the businesses, then you can get become easily a target of the like harassment, arrests, like being arrested or like extradited by the officers. So, but here is another point: is that many people might curious why only women, not men, dominate the North Korea's black market. The truth is that men were still required by law to report their assigned state jobs, and they're controlled more tightly than women's. And even if those jobs no longer functioned, they're still not allowed to exercise any um, outside performances more beyond of that what their assigned jobs. So that's why women had to step in and then became the main actors in a market activity. I would say out of necessity, not choice. So North Korean women were in a I would say were caught in a contradiction. On one hand, they become the economic backbone of the crumbling society. On the other hand, they were never given the legal recognition or protection that matched to their contributions to the society and to their families. And despite carrying these burdens, they're still expected to be quiet, obedient, and differential to the male dominated system. So, yeah, of course, the historical tensions, war, division, dictatorship, famine didn't liberate the North Korean women. Um, the regime only took their silence as compliance and their sacrifice as duty.
Right. Thank you for your insight. We now turn to the human rights crisis in North Korea, where women face profound challenges, as highlighted by the 2014 UN Commission of Inquiry on Human Rights in the DPRK. Ms. Lee, drawing on your experiences as a former member of North Korea's elite, could you share insights into the human rights situation? How does the reality align with external perceptions?
Um, So many people outside of North Korea, even
Mhm.
those in academic or diplomatic circles, tend to think that, um, the country's human rights crisis, in the abstract terms, political prison camps, surveillance, censorship, but those are very real and they are horrifying. But what's often in missed is how those violences are experienced across every layer of society, including the elite, and more importantly, how distorted the outside world's understanding still is. So let me start with a common misconception that I've heard repeatedly, even within North Korean, um, I would say SKP communities, so that North Korean elites live comfortably and freely, that they enjoy some of the soft privileges. And I'm not denying that they have soft privileges occasionally, but that those are come at great cost. Um, and another thing is that some even believe that elites can influence decisions or give advice to Kim Jong-un. But
Mhm.
let me be very clear. That is a mm, fantasy. Yeah. So um, like, given my example in more detail, I was born in a high-ranking family in Pyongyang, and I had better food distributions, and imported clothes and access to the um, special educations in North Korea. But none of that meant freedom. Um, because it doesn't mean that I had those freedom of movement, freedom of expression because I was entitled with the elite status in North Korea. Our lives were shaped by fear just as much, not if not more than those ordinary citizens. Why? Because when you are closer to the power in North Korea, the leash is shorter and the stakes are higher. One misstep, one wrong word, even a whisper of disloyalty from a distant cousin, and your entire family can disappear. I have seen it happen. My best friends, my classmates, and also my family members, colleagues, friends, they all disappeared because of those um, guilt by association system, which punish one entire family for one person's words or actions. Excuse me. So there is an elite group that sitting around a table and advising Kim Jong-un like the normal government. Power is concentrated in one man. So even like those um, Politburo members or high-ranking military officers live in constant, paranoia. They don't advise. All they do is just obey. And when they fail to obey perfectly, they are punished, purged, imprisoned, or even executed. So, um, in one word, I can say is that there is a no safe space, no matter from the top all the way down to the bottom in North Korea. The only person feels safe is might be Kim Jong-un himself. And um, another misbelief in North Koreans, misbelief that, like North Koreans, um, is that especially among the elites, believe in propaganda. People think the reason that there is a no revolution in North Korea because many North Koreans, especially the elites, believe in the propaganda and protects the system, um, and Kim Jong-un. But this is not always true. Many of us grew up parroting lines we don't believe, not from the beginning, but like as the time goes, as we get to know the system and compare our system to outside of the country, um, North Korean elites are smart people. They gradually realize that the problem of the system itself, but there's nothing they can do except obey. And so what we need to think about is that uh, not believing doesn't mean you can act in North Korea. They are trapped in the golden cages, Um, so they know that any sign of the distant descent could destroy their entire families, and that's what fears them most. Like if it's just like one person, sick of one person, myself, I believe um, or there are already many of North Korean people who took actions against the regime. So
Oh,
what I want to
insight.
highlight to the yeah, what I want to highlight to the to outside people in terms of misconceptions is don't look at those like shiny buildings of Pyongyang and then those female new anchors or staging cultural events, like you on the media and think that maybe it's changing. This is all curated, and it's pretty much the entire country, pretty much a prison and at the same time a theater. So the real North Korea is what happens off camera: hunger, surveillance, informants in every neighborhood, children punished for their parents' politics. And that hasn't changed over these 70 years, and it gets even worse. If anything, control has become more refined, more digital, more invisible under the current Kim Jong-un's era. And so I talk about the Pyongyang, and let me like expand it to the like broader side of North Korea. The people
Sure.
outside Pyongyang, yeah, they face daily humiliations, standing in line for food, bribing corrupt officials, and during family members with no medical care. It's really heartbroken fact. And as we all know, there is no freedom of religion, no freedom of movement, no access to outside information without risk of death. So I'll say, um, I want to ask people do not sanitize or rationalize North Korea's system based on what you've seen from the North Korea's media and the propaganda. Like maybe they have their own model, or like let's not judge based on Western standards, but this is not about Western values. It is about universal rights to speak, to think, to live without fear. So North Korea denies those rights to every citizen, regardless of different classes. So yeah, I want to urge people listen to like those of us who lived it, um, and have like better understanding about the system itself.
I see. That really was an impactful insight. Thank you for sharing your experience. And
Of
given your
course.
as a member of high-ranking North Korean family, could you maybe provide perspectives on the realities of life for North Korea's elite? You already
Mhm.
mentioned, but maybe in more details, if possible.
Sure. I believe this is like continuous topic of like our previous conversation, but so in North Korea, your status is determined by your family's loyalty record, and we call that 성분. And
Hmm.
when I was in North Korea, I didn't even realize like we have this kind of system, and then I didn't even know what tier of 성분 I was part of. And but this system classifies every citizen based on the political behavior of three generations of their family. So my family belonged to the core class, which gave us to better housing, jobs, and education. Um, and but it doesn't mean that it is completely neglecting the individual capabilities or efforts. It still recognizes the like individual kind of like hardworking mindset and then contributions. But I would say um, would the precondition that has to met, like which means like good Sangwon class has to be met in order to get the recognition of your hardworking and contribution. At the same time, it is pretty much conditional. You could lose everything overnight if one relative said the wrong thing or married the wrong person or was simply suspected of disloyalty. And that fear, I would say, never leaves you. Unknowingly, you grew up and live with the fear every day. And um, yeah, that's how
Understand.
yeah, that is my time in North Korea, and I believe it is still something that many North Korean elites carries every day. So
Yeah.
it is really sad to see that North Korean elites are often portrayed as the beneficiaries of the system. But given the fact that um, like we often talk about political prison camps, right? It
Yes.
is um like that's where those people who are nowadays in political prison camps, they are all
Mhm.
previous elites. Um, and I mean, they're the elites in the previous days. So you can say that you can not only say that they are the beneficiaries. So um, I don't know because we had like as an elite. Um, we had more to lose, so the leash was shorter, as I said. And then
Mhm.
um, I would say, put it simple,
I
loyalty is rewarded in the long term, and it is demanded, tested, and then um, discarded when convenient.
I
Yeah.
understand.
And one more thing I would like to say is that the emotional cost is also worth mentioning. Many LA children live with the enormous pressure to succeed, to obey, to protect the family name. And there is no space for personal dreams. There is space, but they have more those pressures to carry out their family reputations and also legacies, or and of course, then like they lose their
Any other?
independent identities. Hmm. So, um, um, you lose not only your kind of, I would say, like I didn't just, I feel like they are still the victims of the system itself. I mean,
Yes.
not only those ones who are in the political prison camps, but those ones who are um, like still holds the elite status, I see them as a victims of the system. Actually, no one, everyone in the system in the country are the victims, and then um, yeah,
Thank you
it's
for
really
sharing.
hard to. Yeah, of course, happy to. I wish I can better explain, but since we've talked about some of the details in previous conversation, I'm just going to end it here for my personal experiences.
Thank you so much for sharing your personal experience. We know that it would be hard to
Mhm.
let everyone know that your experience, and we're really grateful about you telling all of us, hearing for all of us, getting chances to learn about your experience. So
Of
shifting
course,
to
and
the
then like if they want to learn more about like those the pressures and the daily lives of the North Korean elites, I have spoken at the TEDx talk. They're more than welcome to follow with the video later on after this our video.
that'd be perfect. Shifting to the next question, North Korea's 2016 report to CDAU indicates that women hold only a small fraction of leadership roles across government and diplomacy. Ms. Lee, from your own experience as a someone raised within the elite community, it doesn't appear that privilege always translates into real power, as you mentioned earlier. Could you share what specific barriers elite, specifically women, faced when trying to take on leadership roles in North Korea? And if possible, could you also share what kinds of challenges ordinary women encounter when seeking influence or recognition into their communities?
Yeah, I'm more than happy to, but given the fact that I was only the student when I was in North Korea, my
Mhm.
analysis and my examples doesn't represent the entire North Korean woman's experiences and then the understanding. Yeah, I want to make that clear before I'm explain and answer your question. So, from the outside, it's easy to assume that under the socialism and Juche ideology, which claims to value equality, women in North Korea might have access to opportunities in government or public life. And yes, the regime does use the language of gender equality in official documents and propaganda. But the lived reality is completely different and shaped more by centuries old Confucian traditions than by Marxist theory. In North Korea, no matter how much state ideology says otherwise, the cultural mindset is still deeply um, patriarchal. Women are primarily seen as caregivers. They are expected to raise children, care for their
Mhm.
in-laws, cook, clean, and maintain the household. Even elite women, those from powerful families, are raised with the expectations that their most important role is inside the home, not in society. I don't know how much it has been changed past 10 years, but
Mhm.
um, I highly doubt there is a huge shift. So, in fact, the more privileged the family, the more pressure there is to be a proper wife, wise mother, and those like the daughter-in-law. So that pressure doesn't disappear if she is educated or assigned to a leadership cost. I have seen that from my friends' family cases. I know a couple of my friends' mother were like a in a leadership role in their own like entities, but still had to carry those household tasks and their responsibilities as a daughter-in-law, because that pressure is so harsh. So in that kind of atmosphere, women in leadership, whether elite or not, are always like walking on a like tightrope. And but the biggest problem is that when a woman does rise to a public position, she is rarely celebrated for their um, capabilities, abilities. Instead, people often assume she got there through either family connections,
Mhm.
bribes, or worse, through inappropriate relationships with powerful men. So if they speak too loud, they are labeled as arrogant or unnatural. If they remain quiet, they are seen as unacceptable. So that was my personal observations through my neighborhoods and then family friends. My mom was a like how what is the appropriate wording to describe my mom? Full-time house mom, I would say. Uh, And I would say in most cases, especially when it comes to the elderly family, I rarely seen a mother, um, yeah, um, contributing the like societal role and then being in a leadership role. So that is because of that, like marriage itself adds another layer of restrictions. So Um, and unlike South Korea and US, unmarried woman is seen as strange or like suspicious in North Korea. So many women are pressured into marrying, um, like right after their graduation of college or before 30. But once they do, they are often expected, like um, both implicitly and like openly to give up their ambition outside the home. So I would say that is, I mean, it is not about those like sexism. I would say it's more like a cultural control, and it's why even talented and well-educated women in North Korea and like struggle to hold on to leadership roles with real influences. So yeah, it's not only about the system itself, but more, I would say more about the like the traditional cultural influences that limits the woman get into the society and then have the leadership role for like long term.
I understand. Thank you so
Mhm.
much for sharing this again. So, when it comes to North Korea's perception in a society with limited access to the outside world, right? In that society, how do North Koreans learn about places like South Korea, Europe, or the United States, other free worlds? What perceptions do they form, particularly about women's roles?
Um, I I think North Korean people have very little understanding about Europe unless they studied abroad in Europe or like lived there for a couple of years. Um, but in terms of like South Korea and America, we all know North Korean regime officially like brainwash people that South Korea and United States is like eternal enemies and these places are like decadent, cruel, and corrupt. But the truth is that people don't completely believe it. Um, Over the past 2 decades, foreign media has quietly penetrated the information blockade. So US-based drives, DVDs, and SD cards have been smuggled across the Chinese border and circulated underground. And for many North Koreans, this is how they first get a glimpse of the outside world, I would say. Not through the books or like teachers, but through movies and dramas. And like um, I let's imagine this. A North Korean housewife watched a South Korean drama in secret, and she sees a woman living alone and running her own businesses and driving a car, wearing clothes of her own choosing, those colorful dresses. That one image is more subversive than any speech about democracy. And it says a different life is possible.
Mhm.
And from my understanding, as many South Korean media captured through the North Korean escapees, that actually some of them escaped after watching South Korean dramas and like American movies, by those scenes, by those different lives that depicted in the movies. After they're comparing their own lives in North Korea. So that is why the regime, fears about those foreign influences. Um,
Mhm.
and that's why, like when they are being caught with foreign media can lead to the brutal punishments, including like more than 10 years of the imprisonment or like
Mhm.
executions. So, I
That's a
mean,
realistic story.
yeah, but North Korea has failed to control because North
Mhm.
Korean people are like I mean, the hunger for information, I would say, is stronger than fear among the North Koreans. So we
Yeah.
often say people are addicted to those foreign media for
Mhm.
its like refreshing and then educational contents. And I remember when I first watched a South Korean drama, it was not educational, but it was very refreshing because that was the like stories that I have never seen in North Korea's media. I don't know if it's like old K drama, Autumn in Love. Have you heard about that? 가을 동화?
Automillers, 가을
Autumn,
동화.
I believe its English name is Autumn in Love. Yeah.
Wait,
So
a really famous one.
eh, yeah, and that was very, very popular in
Mhm.
like late 90s and early 2000 in North Korea. But my dad was very strict. And I was only like 10, but old enough to um, know that that could lead our entire family to be gone. So I remember that I watched the K-drama in a great fairness. So
I see.
yeah,
After
I mean,
escaping to South Korea,
mhm,
how did the interest in women's role that you experienced and social expectations shape your understanding of freedom and empowerment?
mhm.
And what challenges did you face adapting?
So I studied abroad in China for in like early teenage and went to college again in my early 20th before arriving South Korea. So that means I already had some understanding of what life outside North Korea looked like. I had seen women in strong roles, professors, politicians, business owners in China already. And in China, I was openly watching South Korean dramas, so understood better about those realities. So coming to South Korea didn't shock me in the way it might shock someone who has never left North Korea. That said, and there were still things that surprised me, not about freedom itself, but about how differently it's expressed. So, for example, in South Korea, women have so many opportunities: education, careers, activism, leadership. I really admire that. But I also noticed that sometimes what people call empowerment feels a little harsh, especially in how people communicate. I have seen situations where women would speak to other people, especially men, because they want to like express their inner like empowerment and more like leadership role. Sometimes, they would say in a very like cold or like aggressive way. And to be honest, I actually felt kind of like bad for those mm, like men when I've witnessed those scenes. So um ironically, I say there are some like women who seem confused, like they were not sure how to respond without making things worse. Uh, um, I mean, you don't have to be aggressive or like being like um, arrogant in order to show your true power. Which yeah, so it is something that really like give me good, some moment to think about what the true empowerment means and what would be the like better way to exercise because we shouldn't lose the warmth and respect in order to show strength as a woman. Um,
Um, you're
Um, yes,
good.
I have more answers for that question, but because we are almost run out of our time, I will just move to the next question.
Thank you so much for your understanding.
Mhm.
So, shifting from challenges to solutions, now explore how women's empowerment can shape a unified Korea. What support systems, particularly in education, healthcare, social
Mhm.
integration, and economic empowerment through vocational training or entrepreneurial programs, are essential to help North Korean women adapt to a free society and contribute to a unified Korea?
It's really interesting question. So when we talk about North Korea women post-unification, I don't think we are starting from a zero. Many of them have already been working, not just within the former systems, since the collapse of the, the public distribution system in 1990s. They have been the core of the driver of the informal economy, operating Janmadan market, which is black market, and taking enormous risks to provide for their family members. And I cannot emphasize enough that the important role of the North Korean woman um, in the past like 3 decades. So they have those like skill sets. Many of them have already those skill sets, like negotiations and then um, like those like business mindsets as well. So, um, but it doesn't mean there is no challenges. I think the true challenges comes where, when they have challenges because they often lack of the like formal educations and then legal protections and those like I would say modern business skills, but with the fast growth of the AI technologies nowadays, the modern business are shifting a lot from the previous. But in North Korea, uh, not many people have those exposures. So I would say the first thing we need the most will be those transitional vocational programs that acknowledging that or they already know, but at the same time, get them to experience those skills assessments, credentialing, and the like tailored like certifications, so that they can get the official recognition in different countries and different cultures. And I would say the another points I want to highlight would be the um, those digital literacy, um, how to use smartphones and then navigate the internet or operate e-commerce platforms. So um, North Korean women they are um, I would say resilient and smart and eager, have their eagerness to thrive. So um, it will really, if they equip with those skill sets, they are going to be the core of the changes post unification. And of course, the most important thing through those education, we need to create a network for them so they can, like, the make sure that the economic empowerment doesn't happen in isolation.
I see. Thank you for your insight. To conclude, as a human rights advocate actively working in the free world and striving for a unified Korean peninsula, you are seen as a pioneer with great potential to play a significant role in the post-unification transition, given that you are very actively giving speeches to like this event and also including your TEDx speech and also through your YouTube channel, Pyongyang. How can global awareness and initiatives empower advocates like yourself to lead these efforts?
I really appreciate your question because that is something that what we really need to pay more attention to those North Korean escapees. I don't like the term. People who are coming from North Korea, you know, be prepared for the future, not only just like current like activism work. So many of us, like me, who work to raise awareness of North Korea are based in NGOs, but I believe the most effective way the international community, especially governments, the corporates, and international organizations can support us is by creating special programs or like those opportunities that help us build professional careers in various fields based on our academic and personal strength. So
Mhm.
I personally strongly believe that North Korean human rights advocates should have these solid careers um, on top of being an activist, like as lawyers, like tech experts, or like public health professionals or policymakers. It will all allow us to speak and act with independent, without conflict of interest, and with long-term commitment. So, and I believe this is not only like supporting those our individuals in the long run, it prepares us to contribute even more to a unified Korea and being a bridge of the North Korea and the international society.
I really agree on that. Thank you for your insight. Ladies and gentlemen, today's conversation has illuminated how women are not just participants, but architects of Korean unification. From Ms. Lee's powerful accounts of human rights struggles to her vision of empowerment, we've gained a deep insight into how resilience and cooperation can shape a more just future. As we conclude, let us carry forward the hope and women will lead the way to a unified and thriving Korea. To our esteemed guest, Ms. Sohyun Lee, thank you for your invaluable contributions. And to our audience, thank you for engaging in this critical conversation for a unified and thriving Korea. Please join me in thanking Ms. Lee once more. Thank you so much.
Thank you.